literally just disproved you, and all you got to do is come with insult.
Doc, do you want
in order to validate you.
Do you want to go back to your original argument then, Doc? Like, why don't you talk about how you prove a conceptual real or something like that?
He imagined it. That's how he proves it. His imagination exists in the alternate reality, and that means he's married to Magic-Chan, and pretty soon the dimensions are all going to merge, where all conceptual, fictional creatures live in the other dimension, and they're all going to come over and merge with this one, so we can live with all our superhero friends and all of our imagination. Literal Chris-Chan, boy.
Well, I mean, like, Doc, hold on, like, why get lost, Doc? Like, why don't you just actually present your argument here, right? I'm imagining
my argument is that there is such a thing as nothing. There is such a, well, not a thing, because nothing is devoid of a thing.
Right, off that, right? I feel like you're better arguing.
And then the opposite of a thing, nothing, would be everything, which would be the universe and the anti-universe, or like matter and antimatter. But, and then at the same time, there is a transition between nothing and everything, and that transition is God between those states. Blippity, bloopity, blippity, reasons, blippity, states.
So some transcendental...
Transcendental, probably.
Transcendental what?
I mean, like, Doc, why don't you just argue about how you prove a conceptual truth or something? I feel like that was your original argument, right?
Well, the point is that you're trying to define something that you will never define. The point of religion is to get you closer to God. You're never going to be God. Well, if I'm never going to define it, what's the argument for that? Because something that is imperfect could never be perfect. Because in order to be imperfect... You don't know what perfect is. You don't even know what I asked you like 8 times, and you couldn't tell me what perfect... Perfect is something that has never been imperfect. You couldn't even, like, alt-tab over and Google define : perfect and then read that. Like, you weren't even capable of... Well, I did a C:/format/S.
Do you believe in aliens, Doc?
That's an invalid argument.
Doc seems to believe in the Libertarian Party, though, looking at his profile, so...
Doc, sincerely, do you believe in aliens as well?
I believe we are aliens.
Interesting.
Well, the Bible says we're not from here.
Which Bible? And what verse?
Is there anybody that thinks that Doc should not be kicked? Anybody thinks that Doc should stick around?
Him right now.
Well, he's clearly mentally ill, right? Like, it's immoral to argue with people who are ill. Oh, he clearly is.
No, what if this is his last straw? Like, that's not...
What, it's not nice to argue with people who are mentally ill?
I don't think
I'm not mentally ill. I think existentially, and I
internalize it. He might be a midwit, though.
He's probably just stoned.
Actually, I'm 6 months sober.
Congratulations.
But I mean, like, what's your...
have at him, guys. You want to argue with crazy people, go ahead.
Argument, Doc. I mean, just present...
No.
For God, that people can actually engage with it.
Well, my point is y'all are sitting here trying to prove he doesn't exist, but you can't even prove that, what perfect is. You tell us what perfect is, and I'll tell you whether or not it exists or not. God is perfect. Well, what is perfect? What is God? Tell me what those words mean to you. Tell me what those words mean to you. It means God that is infinite. What is God? What does God mean? What does God mean? You can't use the word God in the definition of God. What does God mean? God is infinite. He is the nothing and the everything and the transition that, manifested us into reality, or what we perceive as reality.
So do you believe, since you say we are aliens, and that's what he was saying. That's what you were saying.
That's pure gibberish.
So you think you're God, so you're saying that God brought us here from somewhere else? It's
pure gibberish.
I think that's
like that doesn't mean anything.
Actually, yeah, I think that's what he means, Long, because I think he said something like, "We are not from here." the Bible says we're not from here, so then therefore we're aliens or something like that. So I think that is a steelman of his argument.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think we should.
Hebrews 11:13.
It's absolute like garbage. Like you didn't say anything.
What is that verse in reference to? Is it your claim about us not being from here, or is that like something else? I'm not seeing the relevance.
No, about us being aliens.
Oh, can you read it for me or something so I can understand your point? I don't have a Bible in front of me or anything like that, so.
Oh, I don't have one in front of me either. I'm actually painting my house right now, and everything's been boxed up.
Well, open a window, man. The fume.
Is all you have is satirical insults in order to be able to disprove me?
You haven't said anything. You haven't said anything. You're like a drunk chihuahua.
I've said everything and nothing, and prove that God is
everything and nothing. That's garbage.
Is there such thing as nothing? Can you prove that there's nothing?
No, there isn't a such thing as nothing. Nothing is that which is not. It doesn't exist. Now what? See? Clear definitions, right? So what's next? What gibberish you want to come out with?
So is there an everything?
The set of all things, yes, clearly. If there are things, then there's a set of all things, yes.
What if you did everything minus everything? What do you end up with?
What if you did everything minus? So it's what? Math? That's what we're doing. You'd end up. That's what you would end up with.
What are your viewpoints on infinity? Because infinity is nothing and everything all in one.
Wait.
See, that's nonsense. Infinity is a sequence without end.
Do you think infinity is time, or do you think of it as math?
Doc, why are you getting lost? Why get lost in this weed stuff, man? Why don't you just
Because he's nuts.
Clearly, explain what do you think God does in terms of creating reality or something like that, and then why is that's cause for His creation or something like that? Give me an actual.
So. Yeah, it's saying things like infinity is everything and it's nothing. It's just gibberish, right? It's just garbage. It's a deep.
I think it's something romantic to believe and to make people feel better and more important about the
rhetoric, though, I feel like.
Well, how do you describe a Mobius strip?
Go write a poem. A Mobius strip is a surface. It's a one-sided, one-edged surface.
Okay, that is infinity. There is no beginning, no end.
No, it isn't. And where's that definition, sir? Be careful with English, man. Other people are using it too.
So the infinity symbol is not a Mobius strip?
No. It emphatically is not a Mobius strip.
Do you feel like God wants you to work?
Where does the start and finish of a Mobius strip?
Wherever you want to start or finish.
Well, then it wouldn't be a Mobius strip because you had to draw on a point of origin.
A Mobius strip can have a Mobius strip can have an origin and an ending. It's just that it has one side and one. Next.
Yeah,
have you seriously never posed these questions to educated people?
Yeah, Doc. Why are you
just sitting around staring at your computer, drooling, wondering about things?
What's the point of pointing to the stuff for your argument here?
Because a Mobius strip is proving that there is no start and then there is no end and there is no.
There is a start and an end.
Well, I mean, let's talk about
there's a start and an end.
I feel like your point is that
All right. Well, tell me where the start and the end of is with energy.
Isn't your whole point about how something is proven if it's conceptually true or something like that?
Where is the start and where is the end? Where is the start and where is the end of energy?
The start was at the singularity of the Big Bang.
Prove that there was a Big Bang.
You want me to prove, like, the modern consensus of cosmology? Like, read a book, dude.
Well, how do you know that the Big Bang as we perceive it wasn't nothing more than
nothing
expelling of one universe through a black hole and came out on the white hole on our side?
How do you know that that's a fact?
Nobody knows that these are facts.
Right,
these are all theories.
Dude. Like, this is what I was talking about before. Just talk about why you believe something, like, and how it relates to the conceptual truth about the thing or something like that. Go about that.
Right.
I believe that God. I believe in perfection, and I believe that as an imperfect
man,
I will never be able.
No, you don't. You don't believe in perfection. You couldn't even tell me what perfection.
I get saying those things make you feel good, right?
Point.
But that's not relevant.
You're putting the nail right on the head. I cannot.
The words that you've heard smart people use that sound smart to you, so you string them together thinking they also sound smart, and that they make you sound smart.
Yeah, not even that.
And
they make him feel good, it seems like.
Yeah, they make him feel like he's smart and he knows something. You don't understand him. You don't understand the context.
Sit down for a second and think about what you're trying to get at, right? And I feel like you're trying to get at the fact that things that are conceptually true are probably true somewhere in reality or something like that, or they relate to some type of description about reality that actually like maps onto it properly. And oh, here we go again.
No, could you please continue, A? Like, you keep getting cut off.
Well, I don't think I have anything interesting to say. Like, I just want Doc to point out why he's pointing to these conceptual, like, oddities, right? And how they relate to God, and how they're cause for God existing. And he can't just use, like, flowery language and, like, vague, like, colorful, like, rhetorical tools, right? You have to give me an argument, Doc. So just sit down and think about, since the infinitum exists, right? God exists as well because. And just tell us that.
God exists because he is infinite.
Okay, so now you just use the thing, again, in your own... Oh, man, I don't know. Like, I don't think you understand then, I guess.
He doesn't understand the concepts. He doesn't understand what he's talking about. Right? He's just sort of generating words and putting them together sort of Mad Lib style.
Like, Doc, how do you...
Because he thinks it sort of feels
how do you
good.
to work, right? Just, how do you...
What concept specifically do I not have?
Well, okay, just give me an argument, right? What do you think an argument is, first?
You don't know what infinity is. You don't know what God means. You don't know what perfect means. You don't know what nothing means.
Noting the question is clearly, right?
Well, infinite what? God's infinite what? It's not... Infinite isn't like where you stop on that sentence, right? It'd be God is infinite, like time. He's infinitely powerful. He's infinitely... What are you saying is infinite about God?
That's my point. I'm not talking about time or matter or the expansion of the universe that goes on infinitely. I'm not, because you have to encumber everything, and the idea of everything is infinite because you can never actually count everything because it infinitely.
I understand what you're saying, Doc. Are you trying to say that that God just existed before anything existed? Like God was always just there?
Yeah, like the first cause, right?
Yeah, but the same depth of infinite, you have the same
like the
undefinable understanding of nothing.
Still not an argument, though, right?
God created and manifested. He said, "Let there be light." He said, "Let there be God."
Again, that's not an argument. You're just describing things that you believe, right?
God. Well, no, I asked him what he meant by infinite. I asked him explicitly what he meant by infinite in relation to God, and it sounds like, Doc, that you're saying that God is nothing and everything.
Yeah.
And God is timeless, but is he time and also time?
He's beginning and an end.
Right. Time is linear.
Because, like, this is my point here is just saying God is infinite isn't clarificatory. Okay? That's what the criticism that keeps coming from this. The criticisms that keep coming to this is that the criticism keep coming to this is that the words being used and the concepts being presented when they're asked about those words, what they represent, are not clarificatory. And so that's why everybody's frustrated in this conversation. I understand that you have intuitions about these things and you have feelings about them, but they're not clear for the rest of us.
So what about if so this is the difficult issue I feel that I've noticed possibly. Certain individuals claim to have things that are a representation of said God, right? And there's a phenomenon that happens, contagion of aberration, where people all agree that this is now a fact. There's also been studies where, some different types of experiments that have happened in the past where fake scenarios, have been installed in an environment and the same individuals believed it true-heartedly. So, yeah, it's hard to...
I don't even sound like you were talking about some kind of justification there, and like a knowledge, like skepticism about knowledge.
Yeah, not even that. I think she was trying to give some like empirical truth, but I didn't know what she was trying to tying it to.
Well, when you said that you saw a problem, does that mean you believe that there's a problem there?
Yeah, like, not a problem. I'm saying if there are individuals who are witnessing things that represent a type of God to themselves, right, and there's a bunch of other people who have the exact same experience, but there's a bunch of other people who don't have those experiences, right? You would call that a contagion of aberration.
Well, what I was really asking there is, when you say that these are things, does that just mean you believe them?
I'm not saying I do personally. I'm saying there are individuals who believe.
Well, then, when you say there are, does it mean you believe that there are people that believe this?
I believe there are individuals. Of course, there's people who believe in God. What do you mean?
Okay, well then look. When people asked you earlier about what you meant by belief, and you went super skeptical, and you couldn't understand the point, that wasn't clarificatory. You just dodged all the questions and made things more vague.
We already clarified that.
Okay. Well, what my thing here, right, is clarification in the concept you're trying to present. This room, okay, is not very charitable when people come in with vague concepts that they just kind of want to talk about, but don't really have refined. They're just not.
Mm-hmm. So this is about God does not exist, and you're supposed to have concrete evidence of that.
What would concrete evidence be here? You mean like material?
Well, I mean, you're scrutinizing my question.
No, you just said I'm supposed to have concrete evidence. I said, what do you mean by concrete? Do you mean material when you say concrete?
Whatever that would mean to you. Concrete meaning solid.
Well, don't say whatever it means to me. You are using the term with an intention about the communication you're trying to provide to me.
Precisely. So, right? A solid, example to why no God exists.
It's solid. Do you just mean like a sound argument or a persuasive argument? Is that what you mean?
Not even an argument, like a hypothesis with at least three anchor points that are factual.
Well, that's a hypothesis in itself doesn't prove anything, right? We then see if the predictions are measurable, and if it's predictive power, that's whether or not we think that the hypothesis is useful for a time, right? So, are you asking me for just a hypothesis without anything that's predictive, right? Because what you really are going to be asking for is an argument that's going to be persuasive to you that's true,
an opinion,
and not just a hypothesis that I'm going to claim and then you can go out and experiment on. Is that what you want?
No, it's just an opinion. Like, to know your opinion.
That was my impression too, sir. It seemed like you wanted a persuasive argument.
Well, again, see, I feel like I'm being very clear.
Yeah,
right?
I agree, Ninja. That made sense.
And so, but you guys are like, no, it sounds like there's just very much like you don't understand what these words mean in the way that lots of people here do.
Mm-hmm.
So my opinion. You need to be, you're going to have to be clear about these terms and not just ask vague questions to try and prompt conversation, right? People don't like that here. JJ? Well, be careful. JJ loves crazy people, so it's a bad indicator.
I just got back. Let's go. I don't want to interrupt him, but
I don't think it was going anywhere, so please go ahead.
We have people here that want to talk about these subjects but don't have clear concepts around them, and it's just frustrating for the room, is what it is.
Oh, I love to muse and speculate.
See what I said about JJ? Not a good sign.
JJ's fine. I've been in JJ's rooms.
True.
So
Ninja.
I'm assuming you're referring to Sir Long and Doc, right? In terms of they don't know what they're talking about.
I don't know who Sir Long is.
Don't leave me try.
That was just the person you were talking to prior. So.
Oh, all I see, I guess I gotta go in. All I see is like a open parenthesis.
I'm just trying to get a hang over what you've missed. 2 hours of me yelling at people, trying to figure out what they mean by the words they're using. That's what you.
No, it's just like
Everybody else left, and I've had to like wade through it. I want to understand people.
To scare people away from hearing like my questions is really.
I don't think there's any of that intent here. I think is what he's getting at is that you were asking him to define the words you were using, and that doesn't really follow.
Yeah, it does follow because if he doesn't understand the words that I'm using, then how is he going to know what I'm?
Sure, but shouldn't you define
that's why I
the
asked you. That's why I asked you for the definition, right?
And then I told
Why is it on me to define your words before you define them?
Long, I'm sorry you felt like I was trying to intimidate people from listening to your question. There's some fresh ears here. You've got Ninja, JJ, and Detroyer. Ask them everything you want to ask them. And
please don't.
Oh my god, it's not that serious. Yeah, so I guess I'm an asshole now for trying to get the consensus of the room. Because it's been like 6 months.
I didn't follow
Ask me.
that.
ask away.
Yeah, I'm the one to talk to. It's she, right? Sir Long, do we say she?
It's whatever you want.
I like that.
It's even better.
Sir Long has been around for 6 months and is still trying to gauge where we're at and maybe what it's all about. I keep asking Friction Philosophy what it's all about. He still hasn't given me a satisfactory answer. And he's, Friction Philosophy.
I know what it's all about, JJ.
Don't tell me the hokey pokey. There's gonna be him.
Okay, I'm gonna mute up then. So on, go ahead. I mean, ask away, and I won't try to interfere. I'm really not here to make people feel intimidated or anything like that. So.
Do you mind if I ask a question? Do you mind if I ask something real quick?
Please.
Well, I'm new to the Clubhouse community. I listen to some of you guys from like Pal Talk and these Discord recordings. And I was just wondering if I can get like a rundown of the new tier list of debaters in regards to Clubhouse.
Well, it sort of depends on how you conceptualize that. Go ahead, Detroit.
I was going to say, let's not do that.
Oh.
Why not?
Well, the new list is Detroyer. That's it. That's it.
Well, Arianas had one that had him at the top.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you should go ask Arianas.
Well, it's like, I knew from prior that it was always Jack Ainstrike, and I think Detroyer was very big back in the day too. So
He's still very big.
well, I know that for sure. I wasn't trying to be rude or anything like that.
She's still big, bud.
It's humongous feet.
Well, I mean, like you were just respected in terms of your ability to formalize arguments, right?
He's got giant Mickey Mouse ears. Yeah.
Well, I'll sort of break it down. Did he leave? Oh, no, there he is. There's sort of a group of guys who sort of stalk around looking for debates. They're generally known as the debate bros.
Yeah, they got the hunger.
That's
They tend to use, it's unofficial. They tend to use very, technical, philosophical language. They tend to debate technical, philosophical issues. modal realism, that kind of stuff. And then 10 to people that just generally kind of talk about like religion, and it's usually it's breaking up into thirds, like a third religion debate, a third TV show movie talk, and about a third general clubhouse drama.
Well,
Tends to be the content of these rooms.
I heard poker was on that table too.
Poker is at night, but that's a saga we're working on.
One man's cogency is another man's gibberish. So.
Oh yeah, I've definitely heard that like, hanging out on here.
No, I apologize. It just seems like sometimes my questions make people uncomfortable because they don't know how to answer them. No, not you. I just,
That's an accurate statement. No, you're wrong. Like your questions
you also need to take an anger management course.
Me?
Yes,
yeah, grumpy pants.
I don't need to take an anger management course. I manage my
grumpy pants.
The problem is this week so long, and I got fucking stood up, and it's been making me kind of busty off.
I'm sorry. Oh no.
I feel bad about that.
No, that fucking sucks, dude. I'm sorry that happened.
He's teasing.
It's
Well, it sounded true. I believe.
Well, I don't think.
No, it's true.
Well,
It's true. I slept through our meeting. I missed our meeting.
I did a plans with JJ, and he stood me up.
Wait, the thing I think it's true, sir, is that like, there are people in here that tend to think that you're being dishonest or disingenuous for some reason, and I don't get why. Right?
Me?
I don't think Mo is of that opinion as some of these other people in the chat are.
No, so long.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what's that all about? Like, I certainly don't understand.
I have to interrupt. Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear what just happened?
There's a lot of cloak and dagger
What just happened?
going
There's like a 10 out of 10 shouting match between Josh and T-Jump, calling each other dead, screaming at each other, calling each other dumbasses. T-Jump demanding that Josh be removed, or it's crazy.
It was Goddess and him broke up.
I don't know what that means. It was insane. You guys have to rewind.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Did you remove him? Oh no.
Where was that? Was that on James's Tired channel, or where was
Yeah, it's live on Clubhouse Debates.
It's on T-Jump's channel.
Oh, yeah.
I was just watching.
Well, hey JJ, are you interested in doing a practical? Well, first I'm going to ask you: do you believe that human beings are inherently good?
No.
Okay. So you don't believe that there's such a thing as good or like negative or evil?
Only subjectively.
Okay. Are you interested in doing a practical to disprove that? Right.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. So
I don't know what that is, but
so we're gonna
I
play a
can
game.
assume.
We're gonna play a game, and I'm just gonna ask you 3 questions. Okay.
Okay.
Do you follow so far?
Yep.
Okay. So when I ask you these 3 questions, the only thing you have to do to win is to successfully lie to me 3 times in a row.
Oh, okay.
So can you just make sure that everyone here knows, like, do you understand the rules?
I think so.
So what are the rules?
I have to successfully lie to you.
How many times?
8 times.
3 times.
Oh,
I'm
I do that 3 times.
I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and each time in order for you to win, you have to just lie every single time.
You tried to get a quick lie, you know?
I was.
So you understand you're supposed
It was
to
bad,
lie.
though.
Do you get it?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. so my first question for you is, what app are we using?
What app are we using? We are using,
And you have to go quicker than that.
we're using Skype.
Okay, cool.
Is that what you mean by a lie? It's
Yes.
just answering wrong? Okay.
Okay, second question. See, that's why I was trying to be so thorough with making sure you understood earlier.
I do, but I don't think that,
Well, we're in the middle of the
I
game.
don't-
We're going to finish the game.
I'm not sure that wait 1 second. I have to stop. Before we get too far. Me giving you a wrong answer isn't lying to me.
Okay, but it's untrue. If it's not factual, if it's not true, it's a lie.
No, I disagree.
No,
if it's not true, it's just false. A lie involves the intention to deceive. And I don't intend to deceive you, but
Okay, so okay, I should change the language on that one then.
probably.
Okay, so wait, so could you explain?
But before you, let's just go through it because maybe I can help you change the language.
That'd be cool. All right, so instead of saying a lie, I will say, what was the other?
Hmm?
What was the other?
I'm just giving you the wrong answer.
Falsehood.
Right, the wrong answer. Okay, all right. So all right, we're gonna have to start over. So I'm gonna ask you 3 questions, and you have to give me 3 wrong answers. Okay, are you ready?
Oh, that's easy.
Okay, cool. All right, first question. What color is your eye in your PC?
Fuchsia.
Okay, cool. What color is, or what type of leaf is in Friction's?
Did you hear me?
No, sorry, I did not hear you.
I said an oak.
Could you repeat the last thing that you just said?
Did you hear me?
Could you repeat the last thing that you just said?
An oak?
So the third question was, could you repeat the last thing that you just said, and you repeated the truth?
Oh, that's good, actually.
And the reason why you did it is because of empathy, because you felt like I actually couldn't hear you, even though you knew we were playing a game, which is human nature.
Oh yeah, I'm what they call overly empathetic.
No, you're just a human being, which is basically good.
I am more like a superhuman.
If people fail that game, you should definitely block their number.
People fail if they.
Like if they
did I actually answer the right thing?
If they win, yeah, no, you're good. You're good. You're good. It just proved that there is such a thing as good. But from a naturalistic standpoint.
Well, I'm not denying that people are empathetic. That's a thing. Yeah, I think there are people that lack that too. But I don't think that shows that there's some, inherent good? You asked if people are inherently good to begin with.
Yeah, wouldn't you say that was a good thing? Because,
I would.
I mean,
but maybe somebody wouldn't.
The truth. But it's the truth, right? Because, you were supposed to tell me something otherwise, and you knew we were playing a game, and I was very clear with you about that game, but you seem to have forgotten unconsciously, and because you don't need to be thinking about doing what is right, it just comes naturally.
I mean, I failed the game, though.
Well, that's a good thing.
You kind of tricked me into failing.
If you won the game, you would be a sociopath now, wouldn't you?
I don't think so. I think I just would have remembered that to win the game, I had to tell you something wrong to that question.
No, but there's.
I just forgot that. I just didn't realize that was part of the game.
But that's not. I said I was going to ask you 3 questions, and I only asked you 3 questions, right? See, this is a conundrum, and people want to justify it away, but the facts are the facts. And I hate to hear that people don't want to believe that they are basically good. I mean, that's why criminals get caught. Otherwise, they wouldn't, because they wouldn't leave fucking evidence, right? I mean, I feel like individuals deep down take ethics personally, and it varies from person to person. Obviously, there's like terrible people out there that do fucking exist, right? But I do believe that basically the mass majority of individuals are basically good, and you don't need a book to threaten you eternal damnation in order to be a good person, because we are naturally we learn hate. We learn these other negatives is really kind of where I'm coming from on that, God.
Well, see, we learn hate. But I'm not denying, I think what you're talking about, though, is emotional development. What he is part of. And the fact that we have sociopaths, people are low on the empathy scale, who are more willing to do things that we can just say the majority of people would say was bad or evil or whatever. That doesn't mean that people are inherently good.
No, right, but a lie should look different from the truth, and it doesn't.
How much think about that? A lie should look different from the truth. It's a little more complicated than that. I believe I've missed T-Jump and Josh.
I was listening to it now, but Godless is on. Apparently, Josh left.
Yeah,
Maybe
he
he's
did.
exasperated with T-Jump.
T-Jump demanded that it be removed, I think, too. So I rewound a little bit here. Just before the screaming match starts. Oh, you know what's funny? Tom left again, right? Tom sent a super chat of $5 where I am at the timestamp. How long till the first dumbass? Or did it already happen?
Presumably, the only reason people are debating T-Jump is for, to make a video of it to show his ineptitude. I'm not sure why else you would want to do that.
That's the best reason, yeah.
Oh, you've got to have a lot of patience, I can understand. So Josh didn't want to leave, then T-Jump insisted. Is that what happened?
I'm not exactly sure. I know that okay. T-Jump was demanding that he be muted, and then Tom said that he demanded that he be removed when he popped in here.
What is that drama for?
This particular drama or drama at all?
What is the relevance to God existing or atheism?
No, it's something else.
Oh, I don't even know what you're talking about.
We're talking about a live debate that's happening on YouTube at the moment.
Oh, that's awesome.
One atheist debating another.
Oh,
T-Jump and Godless Girl's baby daddy. As it's billed.
That's Josh, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Josh is the other me.
Gotcha.
Not really.
Yeah, so...
My name is Josh.
So, in Scientology, it is a lot it's like Jehovah's Witness mixed with atheism, mixed with a mysticism, kind of.
What it is. What's your experience with Scientology?
I was raised there from the age of 4 until 19.
That's probably very interesting.
Yeah,
in California?
No, Clearwater, Florida.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a big hub here in St. Paul, Minneapolis, also.
Do you go there?
I've been there, not for a long time.
What courses have you taken?
None.
Oh.
But I had a neighbor who hosted visitors to the center. And she would lend me some of their hardcover books.
No, like the Dianetics Way to Happiness and
No Dianetics. This was their other little books that
self-analysis.
were just crazy, spiritual math gobbledygook. It was beautiful.
That doesn't sound like Scientology.
Well, I'm probably not describing it very well.
Yeah,
That's what was in this. It was like sacred geometry kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm completely divorced from that. My folks are all still involved, but atheism is interesting to me because it's almost as if that's just like how it is, right? But at the same time, there's all these other things. Like, as an atheist yourself, would you say that you have experienced any kind of magnificent or marvelous or exquisite, unexplainable things only you have seen on your own, or like have done on your own, or like oddities, like nothing in your entire life?
I don't want to say no, but I think if I say yes, it might give the wrong impression.
For who? These, like, okay, I apologize.
Some people might call these things like spiritual experiences, or it's another one I don't know can't think of another term.
Like an unexplainable phenomenon.
Well, yeah, but in retrospect, they were far more explainable. And maybe I'm wrong about it, though. But that's not that significant to me either. I think the most profound experience I've had is the existential crisis. Nothing beats that.
What is, okay, perfect. So when you fall into those experiences for yourself, what do you feel is the main driving force behind that? Like, what is your the issue with that?
I don't know what the driving force behind it is. Me.
But what is causing the existential crisis?
Thinking.
About?
Not existing.
Not existing, but you are existing.
Right.
So.
And thinking about how amazing existing is, and everything that it entails.
JJ, what's the topic you're talking about?
I see JJ is showcasing his strongest woo game to try and woo in another way.
Yeah, I don't know.
Tell me it's not good.
It's not making. I mean, listen. It's because that's not the same thing as an existential crisis. Now,
What the hell's going on with this?
What?
An existential crisis?
Buffering.
What's not the same as that?
Like, what would your definition of an existential crisis be?
Well, it's just what I just said.
Fearing
Part of
death?
it, JJ, is part of your definition there when you're talking about your existential crisis. Was it that to not exist is not a desire you have? You have a desire to exist, and the concept of not existing, or that you have to not exist at some point, is undesirable. Is that what you meant?
It's part of it.
Yeah, you left out that part, and that's why I got a little confused.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Well, My bad.
So isn't that the same thing as like a fear of death?
That's part of it also. Tom, is that debate over?
I'm still listening to it there. Godless is shouting at T-Jump.
Oh, good.
He says, like, time, I think he says time is irrelevant to whether you can justify your past memories. Something to that effect.
That's funny.
JJ, why would you have a fear for that?
Why do I have a fear of that?
If the common goal of every living thing isn't to survive, why would anyone have an existential crisis?
The goal is to survive. That's why.
Okay, good.
That's why it's a crisis.
Yeah, Mo definitely didn't.
What did Mo say?
I don't know.
Oh, you mean Ninja?
No, Mo just was. I don't know. They got stood up.
Oh, yeah, I stood Mo up. He was in town.
Gotcha.
And I didn't get back to him in time.
Yeah. That's just a natural thing. Do you think that that's just like a natural thing? Like, I guess when I think of existential crisis, to me in my brain, I'm thinking like I'm in a spaceship in the middle of nowhere, like thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away from Earth, and like I know I'm stuck there, and I'm like flipping out, and you know what I mean? Like to me, like that's what an existential crisis might be.
Yeah, that can be it too.
But like I don't
contemplate being the only, being isolated, all of these things. But
so what makes you cause that on Earth? Like, how do you feel this fear when you are so young and like vivacious? Like, what is this?
What is this fear for? It's just contemplating that it's finite. You know what's funny is you can.
How old are you, JJ?
You can experience it contemplating the infinite, even. What the fuck that means? I'm 51.
So
may I ask a question?
Oh yes, go ahead.
I have a question from you, atheists. My question is, can a thing come to existence from nothing?
Yes.
Yeah. How is that possible? I mean, if a thing could come to existence from nothing, they should not call that nothing, because there is a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Hey, do whatever makes you happy, Chris. If Christianity gives you joy, you know what? Good for you, man. You don't get that. It's what? How? This is so evil. This is so terrible. Look what Christianity has done to you. This is awful. Look at what you're saying. Other people are going to hear that. You're poo-pooing on the LGBT community. This is vile. How dare you? Really? What about the do what makes you happy stuff? Hypocrites.
Well, Chris, is that really what happened? Were you just saying that you walked away from it because it made you happy, or was there like more to this discussion going on?
I mean, yeah, there was a lot more to it. I mean, I recognized that I wasn't fulfilled. I couldn't really find purpose in my life. Dealing with self-esteem issues, just kind of feeling isolated. I didn't even really aspire to do things beyond the confines of the community because I had identified with it, and, I
just through divine revelation over time, that God just kind of revealed to me that this is not the dream that I have for you. And God was just so good in the way he did that. I never mentioned how I wrote a coming out letter to my dad when I was 26, and I addressed all these different points in it. And then once I became an actor, I was talking about that letter when I was doing an interview. And one of the cinematographers asked if I still have that letter. And I shared that letter with her. And she said, I'd love to turn this into a film. So she turned it into a film. I actually got to play myself. It ultimately went on to do really well in the festival circuit. But I had this experience once I got done filming, particularly got done filming the church scene. I was in the car with my friend who was the other actor, and I was freaking out because now I was, as an actor, you have to find an emotional place in your own life to speak from, to bring that character to life. Now, because I was playing myself, now with a much more mature mind, I'm reading back these lines and I'm going back through these experiences that I had when I was young, and now I was having questions. I'm like,
that are against you in the universe, of course. And I
Yeah,
give you an example
actually,
that
but I'm
fits
talking
your
about the universe as a whole.
okay.
So was my example.
You agree that you agree with me that the matter can get converted to maybe energy. It's famous. The equation E equals to mc square.
It is.
the
It
equation.
is famous. Yeah, it's famous.
Okay, great. So
that
it
is a
means
famous
that
equation.
yeah. So it means that the particles are not existing all the time. They cannot exist. Like a necessary
I know.
being.
That equation
Okay.
doesn't mean that.
Great. Okay, it just
It's not
changes.
nuclear reps.
The matter is not the matter anymore.
Right.
It
What's
gets
the word?
converted to energy.
Could you repeat that section?
Okay, the point is, we must agree that existence cannot be non-existence. It's a contradiction. Like we said that, existence cannot come from non-existence. Okay, it's the same thing. Of course, existence.
But what if it always just existed?
And what if it didn't always exist? But
Great. What? Tell me an example that's always existed.
The universe.
Look, both of these are options,
No.
right? It always existed, or it hasn't always existed, but didn't come from nothing. There's no incoherence in that either.
Mm-hmm.
No, you just tell me, the universe. Give me a particular example, not the whole system. It's a big, large thing. There are so many things in the universe. I told you. Give me a specific example. For example, tell me, maybe matter, maybe, I don't know. Just give me an example.
But why do we need another example? I mean, maybe we could talk about some initial state if there was one. I don't know.
Do you have an example, Nasser? Do you have an example?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
What is your example?
I will tell you. Just wait a minute.
No, just tell us
Anything
now.
that we see in the universe. Okay, let me say something, and then I will answer your question. Anything that we see in the universe is contingent. Okay, they are not necessary beings. As I told you, the matter can get converted to energy. Therefore, they cannot always exist. Okay, they do not always exist. So, it cannot be the case. The matter cannot exist.
I deny that there's I deny that there's any necessary beings. So.
So that's like saying
it's a contradiction. I told you at the beginning.
That's like saying I walked to my neighbor's house. That's like saying I walked to my neighbor's house out of one time out of 10 years to eat soup, and then she forgot about it. So then I just never been to her
Can
house.
we just let Nasser and
Like,
Fiction speak for a short while? Can we let NASA and Friction speak for a few moments?
No, I mean, yeah, if you want. I'm probably gonna, I don't know, because it's fine. We had the same conversation last night.
Dude,
Why do you sound so sleepy, buddy?
yeah, Friction. You guys have the same conversation every day. Like, it's not
That's
just.
true. I don't know.
You violate all the rules, all the principles of logic, I think.
You sound like you're on drugs or something.
Well, first of all, I don't even have my headphones on. I'm just using my phone, like the mic.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Second of all, I actually am kind of sleepy. I don't know why.
He does sound a little like he needs a nap. I agree there.
Master, why can't the universe be necessary?
Because it isn't.
Oh, fuck, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's
obviously. I didn't think about that.
Obviously. But so Nasser, yeah, what if I can't?
No, look, when you look at the universe, I told you, things are not necessarily being, for example, I told you again, the matter gets converted to energy, it tells us that, it's cannot exist for, no, it's not eternal, the point is, it's not eternal, it may
But that's
exist.
not what science tells us. That's not what science tells us.
Even better, energy is constantly being created. Right now, energy is being created in the universe.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Let's
but
not confuse the man.
Okay,
Okay,
it's not from nothingness.
Nazir,
Okay?
like, isn't the real question, like, why you think the universe isn't eternal? Shouldn't you just answer that instead of going on a different tangent?
Yeah, I told you it isn't, it's not eternal.
I mean, you
Oh, you told me.
Oh, it's not. Didn't you say it?
You're saying
It's just
no,
that it
it's
wasn't.
not.
Yeah, that's his explanation. It is.
Yeah, like, tell me why it isn't, right? Like, you understand how causes work.
No,
But he did say it can't be.
But the science
He
is
said it
telling us.
can't be.
Okay,
No, science tells us that
what
that-
science tells
that-
what's the
that
science
it
question,
is
right?
science tells us that it is eternal.
You're right. He's given two examples.
Okay,
He's
I told you
extremely
give me an
simple. It
example
can't
that
be,
is
and it
eternal.
isn't. Oh, universe, reality.
Well, it's just thermodynamics says that energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Great,
It's
you
here.
told me,
And if
you
it
told me that,
exists,
but you,
it must have always existed. Because existence
Exactly.
cannot be non-existence.
but just now, Friction, violated the first law of thermodynamics, he said that things can come I don't know whether it was Friction or Rob, one of them said that.
Yes, I did. Because the universe doesn't obey the laws of thermodynamics like that. Energy is being constantly created.
Maybe.
Well, it is.
Right?
No, it's being created in the universe. Is actually growing with energy.
But it's going both ways, right?
No, it's being created. Period. The free space expansion of the universe is creating. Yes,
That's still up for debate.
no debate. It is.
It is debatable. And
Yeah,
so-
that's still one
Justification that-
hypothesis, right?
Right.
Black holes destroy
to
energy.
continue this thing, someone define energy.
Black holes do not destroy energy.
Yes, it's the property that's time. It's the property that's time. Time dependent? Not time. It's independent of where you view something in time. And it's conserved property with time. That's what I should say. It's the property that's conserved under transformations of time. That's what.
Yeah, don't go get stuck in the weeds about that, though.
That's actually
Yeah, that's what I'm
Okay,
saying.
guys,
Yeah, we're getting-
you
we're
said
getting
that.
Everybody should
deeper
talk
in the
about it.
weeds, right? Like, let's just get back to Nazir's point, right? Like,
You said that energy is being
Do you disagree?
created, but we had another premise, we said that nothing can come to existence from nothing. I mean, things cannot come to existence from nothing. It's a contradiction. So therefore, something has to be the cause of, the universe's expansion. Is that right or not?
Hang on. This is invalid, right? It doesn't follow. The fact that it's impossible that something comes from nothing does not rule out that something can exist and not come from anything, right? There's not anything that it came from. doesn't entail that it came from nothing in the problematic way. Right? There's a difference between using nothing as a quantifier phrase and as a noun phrase. Noun phrase doesn't make any sense. Quantifier phrase, not a problem.
But these people are saying that, the energy is being created constantly. From what? From where?
Yeah, one person is saying that.
Some views about the expansion of the universe require that there's more energy kind of in the universe as a whole. Whether you describe that as the energy coming from nothing, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Well, it doesn't matter what Rob Scuttle says. Nasser, you are denying both. I didn't mean that insulting. Right? for this discussion, Nasser, you are denying both science and logic, as has been shown to you. You have nothing else.
Tell me why.
I propose that the universe is two-dimensional, and that you have the horizon of the one black hole that is this side of our universe. The other side is nothing that the white hole is on, that is connected through a wormhole, and that everything from this side goes to that side and is sucked into the black hole of this side of the universe, which becomes nothing. And then once everything from this side of the universe goes to that side of the universe, then that would be that universe, but then there would be nothing here, and then the white hole and the black hole reverse,
Okay, so
and then everything from that side come into this nothing.
Doc, so basically you're saying that God invented leaps and bounds, like that kiddie place, like that place that you go to, like slide down slides.
I think Doc has been hanging out with Puff the Magic Dragon, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, Doc, it's a theoretical physics, it's not been observed. What's anyway?
Maybe it has.
We've observed the white hole. We've observed a black hole.
It has been observed. People
Have we observed the white hole?
People just like to not talk about it for some reason. A bunch of people left the.
They observed a white hole this year. We'll cite it. I'd love to see
the evidence.
Can we cite that? That's crazy. I've not heard.
So I've never heard that.
Anyway, what NASA's trying to say is, hey, the universe couldn't come from nothing. It must have come from something previous. NASA, just for the sake of argument, because we're not going to get any further otherwise, let's just for the sake of argument say that it came from something else. So what?
No, I didn't say that, What I'm saying is existence must exist. Existence cannot, be non-existence. If it's been not the non-existence, it's a contradiction. So something must always exist. And what's that thing that always existed? It's the equation. We don't know something, There must be something that always existed. What's that eternal thing? Must tell
reality. No. But he's not even saying that doesn't follow, so I don't know. You need to answer that. It makes perfect sense.
But I don't care, what your answer is. Whatever you answer me, I will call that thing God. I will call that thing God,
Yes, the universe is God. Congratulations, Nasser, you're a pantheist.
The point is, we call that thing that always exists, we call that thing God. It's my God. It's one of his attributes.
Don't misgender God, please.
I have a question.
The argument's invalid. So I don't even accept that there is something that always exists.
Nasser, why are all of these gods trying to pimp out my soul out? Why do they want to pimp out?
That's a separate question. Please don't divert onto that question.
I'm serious.
Sorry, Friction. You said that his quote argument was invalid.
The argument's invalid. I already went over this. It doesn't follow from the fact that something cannot come from nothing, that something has always existed. Except in the trivial sense, which is to say that at each time everything exists. Something exists. That's not...
So, Friction, you're telling me that existence can be non-existent?
No.
Okay. Therefore, something that always exists. I told you.
That doesn't follow.
Something that always has to exist.
That doesn't follow. Right? Again, you could have things that have existed, and then there's some beginning, and nothing before that. Those initial things didn't come from anything,
But that's not saying that they came from nothingness. That they are like equal to nothingness in some way.
Okay, I know. Okay, I call that thing that you're talking about, I call that thing God. Is that fine? I think everything is clear.
The initial things, that's what you're calling God?
Yes, exactly. The thing that, existed from the beginning and still exists. Yeah, I call that thing God.
Okay, whatever that is, initial expansion, if you want to call that God, okay.
Yeah, he's just a pantheist at this point.
No, it's no different than identifying God with like the sun.
And of course, this was one of my arguments,
So, I've got a question. On that hypothesis, why can't you assume that God died? Like, why can't you actually go on the theory that God sacrificed himself to create the universe? He existed, and he died to create the universe. Wouldn't that just be beautiful and awesome? So that would be...
No, it's a contradiction
about that, right?
It cannot happen.
Why is that a contradiction? How is that?
Because I told you, existence cannot be non-existent. If, the first being get disappeared or get converted to non-existence, therefore everything can get disappeared. Everything is contingent. Therefore existence is not eternal. So, we agreed that existence has to exist all the time. It cannot be violated.
So are you saying that God wouldn't be?
At each time something exists, perhaps. Doesn't follow that something or anything has to be eternal. It has to exist forever.
It's not eternal. If it's not eternal, the whole existence can be non-existent. It may happen.
No, it doesn't follow.
It's possible.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's completely possible. You are telling me every existence.
It's not possible because it's incoherent. Something can't be non-existence. Non-existence isn't even an intelligible concept.
I love this guy.
Yes, it is. It's the opposite thing of existence. You have existence. The opposite of existence is non-existence.
Yeah, but you're using it as a noun phrase. You're talking about this thing, non-existence. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so are you implying if God did not exist that the universe would have never been created?
No, I'm telling you, based on the logic, okay? Based on the logic.
Based on the logic.
Based on the law of non-contradiction, this cannot be the case, okay? If the existence can be non-existent, therefore everything can be, non-existent. Everything can get disappeared. So, and as I told you, and as we agreed, this it cannot happen. The existence must exist. It's a contradiction. I told you, if existence becomes non-existent, it's a contradiction.
Well, I think, if that person's identity, and I want to do a TED Talk one day on capitalism's influence on its ability to propagate sexual identity. Sometimes people think that, this is just who I really, really, really am. At the end of the day, I would always be this way. But, how you create a statue out of clay is, if you're creating a statue of David, when you're carving it, you're carving away everything that is not it to reveal it. And I don't think that people have done that in their own lives to carve away what is not them to reveal who they are. Because they just take whatever cultural overtones or whatever societal acceptance is propagated as that's the basis for my own identity. And it's like, no, that's not the case. That's cultural, it's societal. People say, well, this happened in my family. And I'm just dealing with it. I'm just moving on. I'm not going to actually look back. And it's just like, well, you picked up something that's not of you, and you've just folded it into you, and say, that that's who you really are. And I don't believe that that's actually the ultimate truth. And I think there's always going to be some type of I don't want to use the word perversion, but I'm using it in the sense of just changing of a path that's going to happen from truth if you think that is truth.
It's not going to lead to more truth. It's going to lead to more aimlessness. It's going to lead to more confusion. Maybe for that person, they may feel that this is the best thing ever. But when their semblance of representation goes out into the world, and if some other young child is just having conflicting feelings like I was, then they may look at that picture of them and say, hey, I want to be like that. No questions asked. And because of the way society is now and the way that we think about things, we don't ask any questions. We just say that that's who I want to be. And parents now say, okay, that's fine. You can go and you can be that. And then they have some type of mental health issue later or some sort. So it's like, for me, I can't just think about my feelings as if they exist in a vacuum. The way that I show up in the world is a consequential act. And before I say anything at all, people are making decisions all the time about what is life, who am I? And so I have to make sure that I'm representing myself well, not just for myself, but for the benefit of other people around me.
Well, let me ask you a question, Chris. It's one thing if you're in a room like this, for example, and an atheist comes in here and may ask you some questions about your particular testimony, whatever. But like when you do go into their room and you're sharing your testimony, I'm assuming that I guess you already are aware that you're going to cause them to then sort of come after you in a way that is vitriolic. Are you assuming, though, that you might say something that would impress upon the atheist crowd, or is it simply a matter of, you know what, I'm going to either stir the bee's nest a bit? I mean, what is your motivation for going into, say, an atheist-controlled room, sharing your testimony?
Well, I think that there's more than one way than an ontological argument to provide a different perspective. And that was the case that I was making before when they were saying, well, we want to debate. This is what we want to do. And I'm like, but you end up getting stressed. Stress is not a good thing. And it's just like, is that what you want to do? Do you really want to spend hours of your life getting frustrated? That can't be good for your health. That cannot be good, So, and it may be fun in the moment, but so is sipping helium out of a balloon. But that's not going to be good for your brain. So, me going...
Nitrous, not helium.
Okay. Yeah, so nitrous. But, there's a lot of things that are fun, but they're not good for you in the long run. And that's the exact same argument that I'm making. Some things can be fun for a period of time, but they're not good for you in the long run. They're not good for other people. You have to know that. So when I go in there, I'm just offering a different perspective, and I know myself. I know that I'm not going to get riled up, and I'm not going to allow them to make me upset. And I know that I'm sharing my truth, and so I'm just going to share my truth and let the chips fall where they may, And it's sharing testimony. So it's like, this is just what it is. And I think I did recognize that over the course of this moment yesterday, that people did start to settle down. They did start to, the mood of the room started to change. And it's, when you embody that resilience, that's one way as well to start to, and to the same case that T said, towards the end, I know you had to leave, Johnny, but towards the end, people did start to say, well, I guess that can be the case for you. I guess that can be the case for you. And we got to be humble in our expectations. Hey, they met one person, and that's real for them. And I'm people with my story may be hard to find, but I'm not the only one. I'm very confident that more and more and more people, as we're all doing this introspection and reflection, will start to come to understand that as well.
Well, let me ask you this real quick. I got to step away for a minute. I'll be back. I'm doing a little bit of work. But let me ask you this. If you were to go to a pride parade and speak openly about the testimony that you've shared in these other rooms about how Jesus Christ has led you to see the LGBT lifestyle in a different way than what you used to as when you were an active member of it. Do you think it would be dangerous for you to be in that situation, talking about the testimony that you've shared here? Do you think people would be simply, not just merely disgruntled or maybe say a coarse word or two, but do you think it would be dangerous, physically dangerous for you to do that?
Yeah, I do, and I don't think that I would do that. There's a time and a place and a way for particular things, especially things that are really deep rooted in people, and people have to be ready. They've got to be in a place of readiness, and so I wouldn't do that, and I probably would expect that somebody would try to fight me or something like that if I were to say that. Would get really, really, really upset. But again, like I had mentioned before, it's a whole tree that you got to chop down. It's not just one stick that's coming out of the ground. It's attached to so many other things. They haven't. The same person who feels like this about their identity also needs to deal with their family life when they were growing up. They got to revisit their childhood. They got to revisit their church hurt. They have to understand what goes on in society. They have to recognize what happened to them in school. They have to recognize that, what the DSM said. I was trying to bring that up about with the trans argument. So in the scientific journal, the DSM, they changed the title, Gender Identity Disorder, to Gender Dysmorphia because it was bringing distress to transgender people. Distress. So they were pacifying and catering to people's feelings, but we accept that and just say, well, look, in the journal it says gender dysmorphia. Well, yeah, but why did they change that? It's because of how you were going to feel about the truth of it still remaining the same, that it's gender identity disorder. So people need an entire vault of information to really sit down and acknowledge. They also need to be in the presence of someone or who is really walking in the fruit of the Spirit to start to change the temperature of their environment, and they start to recognize, hey, when I'm around you, I can just kind of be myself, and I can be, more I'm more at peace, and I just feel really good around you. And when I'm around my friends, like I don't always feel like that, especially for people who are so rooted in their identity that they don't even know what their purpose is. Like they think that their purpose is to be a part of this community. And it's so much bigger than that. For me, I thought I was just supposed to be a gay actor. And that's all I could imagine doing. But once I started to resolve that and reconcile that, well, now I do commercial film production. I do that for all different types of people. But I could never have known that until I recognized what my purpose was. So it's more than just, going down to the parade with a megaphone and saying, hey, this is my story and this is what happened. I might get a couple people who are interested in speaking with me, but they're probably going to be more so interested in debating me. I don't think that anybody would say anything other than good for you. So, that's my thing too. I want to be, as effective as possible.
I'm curious, Chris. Do you mind if I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Christian, right? Are you a presuppositionalist?
I don't even know what that means, honestly. I'm a Christian.
What would you say is the best argument you have for God?
Is for God?
Yeah, for the existence of God. You've got a total stranger on your hands. He's lived on an island, and you're showing him the sights of wherever it is you live. And you mention God, and he looks at you and goes, God? That's God. What are you talking about? Right? and you want to explain to him that God exists. Where do you go from there?
Well, I would say, do you recognize that everything is connected to each other and everything has a relationship to one another, and how one thing happens over here impacts how that then happens over there? Could you see that? Could you recognize that? I would start.
Well, I mean, let's assume he says no.
And then I would probably start to give him some different examples about how things are connected beyond our ability to experience or to be able to witness them with our five senses. But for instance, the molecules in the air, we don't see them or attribute them to actually being there, but they're just as much as there as the skin on our.
Okay, so certain physical things have certain properties that other physical things don't, like the ability to see them. We would accept that, right? Go on from there.
Not entirely. I mean, because you have water. Water, can be in three different states. It can be in vapor state, water, or it can be frozen, but it's all water.
Okay. Physical things can also have different states depending upon their thermodynamic disposition. We would also accept that. Go on from there.
And I mean, apart from thermodynamics, the entire spectrum of light exists across, visible light, but it's all electromagnetic radiation. So, I mean, you may be able to experience the light on your skin, but there's still light that's interacting with your skin that you can't actually see.
Indeed, there is forms of radiation which are not visible to the human eye, or even often to other forms of human senses. They exist, they have a physical presence, and yet they are very hard to detect. You are correct.
Yep, that's true. We've created a lot of different technologies that have to do with something that is physical and observable and has to interact with something that is harder to detect. And the participation between the two devices requires a particular tuning. Like you have to tune your radio in order to recognize the signal. And so, in the same degree, if we're an instrument of God's nature, then it takes us aligning with particular principles within ourselves to be able to recognize whatever signal that He's sending. Now, what happens is sometimes people say, "Well, I'm not getting a signal," or that, and they say, "Well, the signal's not there," and it's now, well, you're just not tuned appropriately to be able to participate and connect with that signal.
Ah, I see. I must not have the right instrumentation, is what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying you don't have the right instrumentation. I'm saying the instrumentation that you have is not tuned properly.
Ah, my mistake. There's a dial, I'm assuming, or something?
Well, I mean, we use colloquially the term moral compass to describe how we all have a set of morals and ethics that once we align with, that we can follow a particular path that's ultimately good. Now, that compass alone needs to be calibrated so that it actually points in the direction of what the true north is, or what the moral consensus is for humanity itself, and that essentially is particular principles that when people align with within themselves, it calibrates them to that moral compass. This is why also colloquially we use the term polarized to describe all different types of people who are delineating from one particular truth, because all of them are kind of customizing whatever different element. They're customizing all their different knobs and notches to kind of point in directions that are based off of their feelings instead of actually what the truth is.
Now, you said something interesting there that I didn't quite follow. You said moral truth, or you said it needed to be calibrated to some moral truth or moral consensus. It seems those wouldn't actually be the same thing, right? I mean, if there was some moral truth of the matter that said, murder is wrong, but then there was a society, some consensus that said we ought to go murder people, right? These would be in conflict, right?
Yeah, but also the Bible talks about judge a tree by the fruit it bears. So if it ultimately ends up being dysfunctional, then I would find a problem with why somebody considers that to be moral.
Okay, so I mean, when I take you to say moral, I think you mean some fact of the matter regarding what ought to happen, right? Or what ought or ought not occur. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. And then when we're talking about like a hypothetical imperative, like the survival of humanity, right? That's always going to be context dependent, right?
I guess to some degree.
Well, I mean, like, I think that's what it's going to come down to, because we could say that stealing is always wrong, but then we're always going to find an exception for that. No matter what we do, there's always going to be some condition. The little girl who's about to starve to death and is stealing bread to literally live and not die today. I think we're probably gonna find an exception here, right?
Yes, that's the truth. That's
So I would push back on this idea of there being some moral fact. There certainly is a moral consensus. We can agree to that, right? But I'm not sure what you're talking about when you're pointing at a moral fact.
Well, I mean, you have to be fair to acknowledge that the context that you arrived at, both from a person who was arguably innocent and in a state of survival.
You're correct. And it seems to me that that's what we're talking about, is some hypothetical imperative regarding survival, right? The moral fact is whatever it takes to survive is going to be moral. Is that what we're saying?
No, I think you're conflating the two, because that does not acknowledge, again, the fact that you use an example of a young child who was starving.
No, I'm just trying to extrapolate the moral fact here, right? Because the exception came down to the fact that it was survival, and she was innocent. Those are the two caveats that I think both you and I could agree to. That's why we're going to make that caveat, is because she was innocent and because she was starving.
You're going to have to hold on for a second.
Yeah, no, sure. No problem.
While we wait for him to get back, and I'm not going to interrupt your conversation with them, you have asked him if he was a presuppositionalist. I can tell you that I am.
I know you are. Good to see you, too.
Yeah, good to see you, too. And by the way, so are you. You're also presuppositional.
Excuse me. Oh, okay, I'm back. Sorry.
Hey, Chris.
Yep. So, repeat your last point again.
I was saying that the caveats that you and I were both agreeing to was that she was innocent and it was a survival situation. And I'm wondering if that's the moral rule, right? I'm trying to get down to the actual moral truth of the situation, is that, when we make these exceptions for things, we're doing it for, these two reasons, and I'm on board. She should have stole, right? Should have stolen the bread in order to not die. But I